Hello. Sorry, we're live. Yes, hello, everyone. Thanks for guys taking over this week. I appreciate it very much. Things are a little bit better. We'll talk, but next week might be a little tricky too. But we're going to talk about all that in the future. But I really appreciate everybody jumping up on board. And Sun's doing a little bit better, so thank you.
Good.
But next week might be. Okay, that's me again. Anyway, yeah. So Wes, what's going on?
All right. So apparently for Thanksgiving, if you aren't overtaken by football or tryptophan, apparently you're going to be able to watch Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson, something that should have happened 20 years ago if they actually wanted to have two guys that were in contention at any point.
They're doing it on Thanksgiving
weekend, Mike. So it's a big thing for $10 million. Like, these guys need the money.
Why is the Waffle House closed?
I know. This is it's such a bad idea. Like, I can't even begin to tell you
exactly the time when you do it, though, because as you just said, if you're all hepped up on tryptophan, you're not going to notice. You'd say, "Hey, look, it's Tiger."
No. If you're not put to sleep by the turkey, this will put you to sleep.
Right. That was the way I put it.
The kill shot. This is the sedative you need.
I mean, it's just I don't get it. I mean, I'm sure Viagra and Polydent will be their big sponsors. I don't know who's really going to watch this.
They want to make this interesting. They should do it at like a really good mini golf course, like just to find like the best mini golf courses in the world and make this interesting. Like really, like do it.
I would make that. That would be more interesting.
Like
half hour. You'd be
like the one in Caddyshack 2.
Yeah, like I went to one recently. There's one they just built one in Margate. It's beautiful and it's like it's nice and it's got like waterfalls and all sorts of cool things. And I'm like that would be I would pay to see a couple professional like legendary golfers play mini golf against each other, like with trying to getting it through the wheel the wheelhouses and stuff.
I like that idea. Eck. That's a good one,
right?
I mean, I looked it up, right, because I don't know much about Mickelson, and his last major tournament win seemed to be like 2013. And Tiger Woods, we know it's a long time ago for him. And it's just like, what is this? This is like two boxers who were like 37 years old trying to, give it one more go and get it. And I don't even understand the payday. It's like, shouldn't they just give the money to charity? These guys don't need the money.
No, but they're going to take it. And then, the thing is this, like, this is why I'm going to throw the mini golf thing for the last second, because this is the thing. Like, hockey players of all the sports are the only ones that actually open themselves up for like embarrassing themselves, like in my opinion, and that is when they do like the skills competitions, like the skills competitions before the All-Star game. They really do. I mean, they put themselves in spots like if a guy, if a guy who scores 40 goals, like say like a Stamkos, can't hit 4 targets, like that's an embarrassing thing, right? And but it's nerve-wracking. I mean, for them to do that in that pressure at that point, and if things aren't going their way, they're going to have problems. That's why I would like to see professional golfers try mini golf and see what they can do, because I would think they'd be humiliated by it.
I would like that, or if you did something like ping pong, fine. At least there's something different about it. There won't be anything different about this other than someone has to win.
Well, I mean,
and that's my marketing of it. That would be the way I would market it. Somebody will win.
Well, I mean, speaking of ping pong, I was at that Smash Fest yesterday in Toronto, and it was funny because, and I don't know if they were part of the actual competition or not, but on top of like about 20 NHL players, they had former, I think he was a Wimbledon champion, Goran Ivanisevic as
won Wimbledon, but he was a really good player.
He was a really good player, and Milos Raonic, who's from the Toronto area, who's the Canadian pride and joy. They were there, and if you put them in that tournament, it would be completely unfair because I mean, I know it's a different racket, but I'm sure that their skills translate to ping pong. So.
You'd be surprised, like because honestly, they're so fine tuned to what they do. I mean, they're machines as far as like,
I don't think they did participate. I mean, it was mostly hockey players. And by the way, Patrick Eaves won the tournament for the 4th straight year. And I have to say, Patrick Eaves has got a beard that rivals Brent Burns. It is that good. I mean, he looks like Grizzly Adams or General James Longstreet.
Wow. Well, that's it. And I know William Nylander was there, so we could get into that discussion today a little bit.
Speaking of beards,
yeah,
he was there yesterday. All right, let's do this. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, August 7th, 2008. August 2nd. It's August 2nd. Sorry. I'm back.
Take two.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Two.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, August 2nd, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Anthony Mingioni.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I want to start with, I've got a couple rumors that you guys may have discussed in the past couple of days when I wasn't here, but I'll give you my 2 cents on how they're shaping up. Okay. And also getting into my blog today, which a lot of people are saying, is clickbait, and I'll admit it probably is on August 2nd clickbait to say turmoil in Ontario. But I want, it's true because there's actually, two major things it's funny.
Well, actually three. There's
actually three, but and the third, that's why I'm saying the other one really is not even like the perspective on what has become, important in the NHL or what has become big in the NHL has sort of changed because of Karlsson being out there. But
right,
these two things are, the two I wrote about today, and the third I guess you're talking about is Cody Ceci, right? Who's also going to be signed. I think that'll get done, and it's still a major thing, of course, but I think the arbitration is going to happen. The hearing's already happened. It sounds like they're not going to come to it.
Right, and it's a sign of the dysfunction in Ottawa. That's what I'm sort of relating to, because they couldn't come to any kind of agreements, and CC, I believe, is 3 years away from unrestricted free agency, so he's sort of locked in there, and the gulf between CC's amount and the Senators' amount was, I think, $3 million. I think the CC was asking for 6 and they were offering 3 something. Close, so it was close to $3 million, and it ended up probably being in the middle. But this is an organization, again, they're playing on the cheap. They constantly do that, and you do not generate goodwill when you've got a $4 million difference in negotiations with Mark Stone. All you're generating is more acrimony to them eventually leaving that franchise, because they're more concerned with the bottom dollar than they are with winning a Stanley Cup.
Well, yeah, and to me, and they've put themselves into a death spiral in a way, and it's kind of like it's extreme to say, but this is a situation where you run into. Because let me talk about Mark Stone for a second. So Mark Stone's asking for $9 million roughly, and they're coming in at $5 million. Both are ridiculous numbers, right? But they're coming in both, I think, and $9's not as ridiculous as $5 million in my opinion, but it's still ridiculous. Stone is a point a game guy. He's in his NHL career. He does get injured a lot. He doesn't play. He doesn't. He gets injured a lot, which is definitely an issue. He's one of the best two-way forwards in the game. He's very underrated as two-way forwards go. He leads the league every year in takeaways. Just dominates the league in takeaways. But here he is, and so this brings when you see these gaps between Stone and CC and where the Senators are, right? You have to ask yourself, first of all, what's going on with those gaps? Because usually teams and players aren't that far, or they're far apart, but they're not this far apart. And when they're this far apart, there is a theory out there that this is that they're asking for quote unquote go to hell money, and that concept is, for example, say you're Bruce Springsteen, a popular artist, but say you're Bruce Springsteen or somebody like that of that ilk, and you're asked to play a bar mitzvah. It's funny because Springsteen won't do it, but I know a lot of famous guys who actually will do this. They'll show up, if they'll say you got to pay all my expenses, my family, and all that stuff, and for $5 million, I'll play 30 minutes at the bar mitzvah or whatever. And they put these numbers out there because it seems so ridiculous that no one's ever going to pay them that to do it. And if they do pay it, they'll do it because it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous way to make a lot of money, right? Are CC and Stone doing that to these Senators, basically not saying we'll play there if you're going to give us this much money?
No, I think when I want to get Russ and Anthony's take on this, I think they're doing it because they know that the Senators' offer is going to be patently absurd, and they have to counterbalance it, because most of the time these arbitrators cut down the middle. They cut down the middle with Trouba, and the only way you can combat that if they lowball you on the RFA arbitration is to be equally ridiculous on the other end, so they get it closer to the amount that they want.
And we would know that, and then we'll know that if nothing happens with Stone, because I do believe that centers are going to try to make a deal with Stone before this goes all the way. Like
I don't think they're going to be able to do it, though. I don't have any faith. I just think it is one of those situations where when you come in that low, and look, the other side knows you're going to come in that low. It's really hard to come to an agreement in time with that kind of gap. That's the problem.
It is not impossible, though, and I bring back like
nothing's impossible.
The question is whether or not, again, Stone knows it's going to be $9 million, but he knows what number he really wants, which is probably going to be closer to where we're at, which is $7 million. So in reality, the gap, while publicly is listed as a $4 million gap, it may be a $2 million gap in this case if it's closer to what he's looking for.
But this is also a reflection of the fact that Dorian was not able to get rid of Bobby Ryan's contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they were able to dump Bobby Ryan's contract someplace, who's making I think a little over $7 million, then I don't think they would have had a problem signing Stone to a long-term deal. But that's assuming that Stone wants to sign a long-term deal. I mean, that's the thing here. This is rats off a deserting ship here. It's like, okay, you know, Carlson is probably gone. What makes you think if a player is not under control that they want to stay in this mess?
That's the big question. If they come to him and they say, "Oh, $8 million a year for 8 years," does he do it? Does he do like $64 million? Is he going to do it? And that's the big question I think that we have to wait and see on, because that seems like something that he should obviously do, right? But does he want to put himself in Ottawa for the next 8 years, or just wait a year and be a UFA? You know, that's where he's at right now. So to him,
but as you said, the injury history, if he gets injured again, or if that's something that overrides a number of teams, the concerns that overrides a number of teams, then, you know, he may not get any better chance than making big money than signing with Ottawa. But, you know, and if you sign with Ottawa, then more than likely a few years down the road, they're going to be trading you anyway. So if you get no trade or no move restrictions and you can control where you want to go, then that might be the best course of action.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a team without cap space. You know, they have some cap space. I mean, they really do. I mean, if assuming that Carlson's not going to be there, which I'm still assuming, you know, that you know, I mean, they're still paying some big money to people, but I think they have some cap space to play around with here. I mean, they did.
Well, I mean, honestly, Russ, I think they have to worry more about the cap floor in the next couple of years, because they trade Carlson, who's making 6.5, and he, you know, if he goes free agency or if they trade him away, that's a healthy chunk. I mean, I don't know what they're going to end up paying CC, but Phaneuf is gone. You know, they got Michael Bodker back in the one deal, so that's $4 million. But I mean, they're going to have to concern themselves with actually having enough salary based on who is exiting and who is coming in.
Sure, but I think they'll pay Matt Duchene. You know, he still wants to be there until he says otherwise. He's from the area, so I think Matt Duchene's going to get paid. I still think Stone could break a record here. I think he could break the Shea Weber record, and if I'm an arbitrator, I look at what Stone's done for that team.
I agree.
And I'm probably shaking my head. Why hasn't this team paid this guy yet?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
And so it wouldn't shock me if the arbiter just says, you know what, I'm giving him the absolute top of the scale because this guy deserves it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you could absolutely see that coming. I don't think there's any question about it. And I think that, you know, if you're Ottawa, though, do that on your own and do it now, and get yourself some goodwill in there for which you desperately need. You know, go in there, because Senators fans will be thrilled if you get Stone tied up for like 8 years.
Oh yeah,
that'd be thrilling, right? And that would be that.
You used the key word though. You just said you didn't mean to, but the Freudian slip was you said tied up, and unfortunately, there are some players now that won't want to be tied up based on the future not looking so great right now.
Right. I mean, Ottawa's still Ottawa. The crazy thing about Ottawa is that they're not as terrible as they seem in my mind still. And this is my opinion. I mean, where you're looking at, I mean, the situation is obviously fraught with all kinds of issues to possibly go terribly, terribly wrong. And it's you know, it's almost gone terribly. It's hard to argue that it hasn't gone terribly wrong already, but I still think that they have some talent on this team that they could actually do something with. And I think that, but it depends on Stone. You have to get Stone in there. If you don't have Mark Stone as that linchpin, I don't know that you're getting Duchene to come back. You don't have Mark Stone. I really think that.
No, I agree with that. That's something. And then again, for the little bit of time that they're going to have Carlson, it will be a mess when he leaves unless they bring in just absolute bona fide talent on an amazing deal. Otherwise, in the aftermath, it could be very ugly.
Yeah, and one of the keys with Stone might be term, because I believe he's 27, 28. He might be a little older than that.
27 sounds right.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in that
NHL, and he's a lot of injuries and stuff like that. But
what I'm saying is, I mean, if you use the Van Riemsdyk contract as sort of a comparative, they may only want to go 5 years on him based on his age, and that's what Van Riemsdyk wanted to come back to the Philly, New Jersey area close to his family, and I get that. But I mean, other teams will try to use that as a comparative.
Yeah, but the difference between him and Van Riemsdyk is he's a higher point guy on a worse team.
He's 26,
and he's a big assist guy.
He's 26, so he's a couple years younger.
But I think he deserves to make more than Van Riemsdyk and get more years as a result.
Yeah, he'll probably.
There's not going to be any issue in getting him a nice, big, giant deal if he goes through unrestricted free agency. Like, it's not going to.
Oh no! I mean, their teams would line up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to. No one's going to sit back and worry about the injury thing now, because they're going to just assume that, well, he played in Ottawa. He played.
I mean, remember, we're already talking about. I mean, Eck, you saying they're loaded with talent, but this is already minus Mike Hoffman. At some point, they're going to be minus Erik Karlsson. It doesn't matter how much young talent you bring in after that.
Yeah, I agree.
They're going to be hurting.
I agree, and then so then let's shift over to a little further west in Toronto and the William Nylander situation, which also should be taking a bigger stage than it is. Maybe I'm just missing it, but I think that this is, and everybody kind of assumes. And Nylander was at the thing yesterday. I saw him interviewed afterwards in the scrum and everything like that. And he's like saying, well, to ask Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas came out, and I still am baffled by this felt like a young GM making a mistake to me when Kyle Dubas came out and said, we can and we will about signing all these guys.
Yeah, but he also said, but that's the thing, he said that, but he also said hand in hand with that, we're going to be patient. And I got the impression yesterday from what Nylander said. I mean, I thought there was a little bit of frustration in there because he wants a long-term deal. He doesn't want a bridge deal, but he says, you'll have to talk to Kyle about that. Well, the reason is because Kyle is like, I'm sure that the Leafs are saying, well, if you want the long-term deal, then you're going to have to take the amount that we think is slotted right for you. And if you don't want that, then let's do a bridge, because they're going to sign Matthews long-term for 8 years. They're probably going to sign Marner long-term, but that probably won't be until next year. Nylander is the guy that is sort of the flex guy. Either if he signs long-term, it's going to be for the money and the amount that they want. And if not, then they bridge him.
I think they're bridging them. I think until they get an idea of what the Matthews contract is, they're going to bridge them. Getting back to Stone for one thing, because the chat room's chatting about him.
Yep.
The other things that an arbitrator looks at is what is his worth to the team, and he's a team leader in a lot of categories.
Yeah.
And that matters. It's not so much around the league; it's more about the team, and that's something where you have to look at that too, because it's easy to say, well, he's just a 20-goal guy and a 60-point guy, but on that team, it's a lot.
I've looked over the Leaf situation, constantly, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility they get all of them signed. But what the symptom of that is going to be is that you say goodbye to Jake Gardiner, because Jake Gardiner, again, if he puts up 50 points like he did last year, based on what other players, similar players like Shattenkirk and Karlsson have gotten in free agency or on new deals, he's going to probably get in the $6.5 to $6.75 to $7 million range. And if he gets that, there's no way that they can afford him.
But you're going to need to pay somebody to play defense.
Well, that's why they've been drafting defense. We're getting to be
a legitimate team. It can't be that much below what you're paying Gardner. And I mean, because that whoever you replace him with, that's going to have to happen, because I mean, you're going to have at least two really top defensemen. And I mean, one thing I think people are forgetting here is William Nylander's father is Michael Nylander. And Michael Nylander was not an easy player to sign in his career. There were contract issues all throughout it. And every time, and it was, and so you got to remember that Williams is a different person, but he's not listening. He's not listening to his dad, or he's not there. And that's why I say Dubas made a mistake, because when Dubas says that we will and we can, he really puts the pressure back on the Leafs in a way that you don't have to, because if you're an agent, you're like, okay, well, let's see if you really mean that. If you really mean that, then you got
Well, Anthony,
the thing about Nylander is this. When he had his most, I'm going to log up.
We're just getting echo. I think it's coming from you, Zach.
I'm not hearing it at all. It's weird. All right.
I know, but it might be from you speaking.
I'll go away. All right. I'll be back.
All right. Okay, he's logging off and coming back. No, and this is I don't think Dubas made a mistake here with Nylander, because the Leafs right now.
I'm back.
Okay. Yep, I don't hear it anymore. Good. The Leafs right now I don't think they made a mistake, with Nylander. I mean, I understand, and believe me, Michael Nylander is part of the representation for whoever represents. I think it's Louis Gross. Michael Nylander is part of that group. So I'm sure he has some input here. But this is the thing. He really, nobody signs offer sheets anymore. He's not going to get offer sheeted by anybody, and he's not arbitration eligible. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they, I'm not saying they're going to muscle him around, but I do, because they do want him, and they do want him long term, but they want him at the amount that they deem is acceptable for them, because they have to pay Matthews, and Matthews is going to get as much as Tavares and maybe a little more. So if there's any pushback from Nylander on that, then they're just going to say, let's do a 2-year bridge and push it down the road.
Here's what I was going to say. Michael always had, whatever team he went to, the only leverage he had was because of Jaromir Jagr. Jagr always would say, I got to have Michael Nylander, and he would get outlandish contracts as a result. Rangers, Washington, you name it. He did produce, but a lot of it was because of Jagr. William Nylander's third in the pecking order. He really has very little leverage, if any at all.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would say this: if they get him on a long-term deal, it's probably going to be 6 years. It's probably going to be very close to what Nikolai Ehlers got in Winnipeg, maybe close to Pasternak because of the cap raising. It's not going to be. He's not going to hit the jackpot. He's not going to hit $7.5-8 million bucks. It's not happening. They're going to, if they go 6 years, then they're only buying 2 years of unrestricted free agency, and it keeps the number down. And I think that's probably where they end up going.
But he is a multi-positional player, though, Mike. That's the one thing that can potentially work in his favor there, isn't he?
Not with Toronto, he's not. He will never play center for Babcock. I mean, the signing.
But here's the thing: if a team decides they want to offer sheet him, they may be looking at that and saying, "Hey, we envision you in a different way than Toronto."
That's possible, but the thing is, it's and I don't know for a fact that they legitimately offered Nylander around at any point in the last year or two, but it would have been a very easy deal to pull off if there were people out there that were really convinced he's a center. He's played center in two spots, two time periods for the Leafs, and both times he was either okay or sort of underwhelming. And he's 21 years old, so you might be able to grow into it. But the general consensus out there is he's a winger, and he's a really good complementary winger to Matthews. But they have guys in their system who could be complementary wingers to Matthews too, Jeremy Bracco and a few other guys. So if they ended up wanting to trade him, they could, but that's not on the docket right now.
I mean, that's a big assumption that you're going to find other complementary wingers with Matthews. I mean, I'm not saying I do agree that Matthews is the kind of player, and I've said this before. I love him, and I think he's the kind of player who makes players around him better. But we've seen what has happened with Crosby over the years. We've seen what's happened with McDavid over the years. That when you find a superstar to play with your superstar, you keep them.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as much of a dilemma as it is. I don't think that they need to find the next Pascal Dupuis or Chris Kunitz to play with Crosby. I mean,
better than either.
Yeah, but like Connor Brown scored 20 goals playing mostly on the wing with Matthews in his rookie year. So you can, I think you can plug in quality players with Matthews and have success. And I'm not saying that,
I mean, again, Jeremy Bracco played 4 or 5 years with Matthews straight. Like they're very connected. They know how to play with each other.
And Jeremy Bracco really didn't get an opportunity with the Marlies last year until the last 15 games of the season, and then he scored a point per game. People may underestimate him. I still think that he gets a full ride in the AHL this year. He probably scores 60, 65 points, and if he does that, then he's immediately a guy who's on the radar for next year with the Leafs.
Yeah. I think that both are a little bit more. I mean, it's hard to, there's always a backlash to signing, Tavares, and it happens. You can't get around it. So this is the backlash that you're going to have to deal with this, right? So, and that's understood. But I don't think the way Dubas did it. I know. I talked to one agent who told me, and that he just thought it was a rookie mistake by saying that you can sign all those guys. And just in the situation where, especially with the kind of agents that Nylander's got. You're right. He doesn't have a whole lot of power right now. That's for sure. And,
right.
He'd have to sign a bridge deal for sure. But you don't want a player like that in there. You want to get this going.
You're sitting in that big chair with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You believe you can sign all those players.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong to express confidence, especially with the situation that they're in. They've got 3 guys who are not arbitration eligible, and again, a league that does not sign offer sheets. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it's impossible that an offer sheet isn't signed, but I still think that they're going to be able to get all 3 of them signed.
Here's the best thing, William Nylander. You want to get a bigger contract? Go out and get 75 points this year. That's all.
Yeah,
have a career year.
And then you have to then you're really putting it, which is great. I mean, that's what you want to do. You want to have, then you really put the team into a spot because, then you got to think about
it. They benefited when that happens. So
yeah, exactly. No, then you start talking about Marner. So that's how that's gonna play out. Okay, a couple people in the chat room said want to talk about yesterday's thing, which I had up there, which is that the Canadiens and the Red Wings have discussed Pacioretty, and this came up quickly, which is not abnormal for the Red Wings rumors to come up quickly because they usually don't come out at all. But when they do, they come out pretty fast. And if this is the kind of thing that doesn't get done by the end of the week, I would say that's just the way he works. The way Holland works is he doesn't do things long term. He's not. There are some guys out there who put feelers out, and things can stretch over. But with Holland, this is a Nyquist and Helm heading back the other way. Pacioretty going to Detroit, and there are other players involved, but I'm not. There are other draft picks involved and things like that. But those are the major pieces, and it's interesting because it does get Montreal back some players in this deal, which is something that they kind of need to do. They very much need to do. But at the same time, does Pacioretty really want to go to Detroit? I haven't heard. He seems very specific about.
I don't see why Detroit would be a no.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He seems very specific as to where he's wanted to go, but he doesn't want to go to the West. I know that, but I think you're staying in the Eastern Conference. That's good. And Detroit really, I think Detroit does want to move past Nyquist and Helm, and it's just an odd thing because they're both players that I think have some potential, but they don't see. I mean, they both have been available.
I think Helm's been a little less because I think I haven't looked at his numbers lately, but I think a few years ago he was a lot better. Nyquist certainly has gotten back to at least being a better player, but he's been a little up and down too. And I think that's really what the message is. They need players to step forward now, and they do have young players to do it. Mantha's going to do it. I mean, they have a
Larkin.
Yep.
Zadina.
They do, and I think that you could look at Pacioretty as he would be a really good fit in Detroit. He would make sense there. He's another.
But it all depends because right now Bergevin. There was an article in the Montreal Gazette that Russ and I talked about earlier in the week where There's basically saying he's a rental. He's not signing anywhere. He's not signing even if he gets traded. It's almost like the Carlson situation where you can trade me. I'd like to, Montreal has given up hope trying to sign him to an extension. That's not going to happen. And, the whole situation with him in Los Angeles last year where they tried to trade him and LA wouldn't do it unless they could get an extension. He, I think, is bound and determined to be on the market next July. So if Detroit is okay with him being a 1-year guy, fine. Because we've heard Nyquist's name be mentioned in trade rumors. So if they're okay with giving him up for a guy who's a 1-year situation, then fine. But I don't think Detroit's got a chance of signing him long term. He's 1 year away from being a free agent.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, I mean, the Detroit is a great place to play. Players love it there. You get him in for a year, and if you
can work on him. I get that.
Yeah, and Dylan Larkin, another American. You get some guys in there that could work pretty well with him. It's not a bad possibility. And if you really want to move past Nyquist and Helm, and it is strange. Like I agree. But I continually hear both of those names and available. And we'll talk to Kevin about it maybe tomorrow if he comes on. But I've continued to hear those names available.
But again, Eck, I mean, we're naming those guys. If you're talking about Zadina playing this year, Michael Rasmussen plays this year, and you start adding these young guys, and it's like they could eclipse what these guys have done for them.
Yeah, I think that's what they
the
think.
reason.
Although Detroit is, I mean, are we going to see the new Red Wings where they bring all these young players up so quickly? I mean, definitely.
I mean, it seems like they've changed their course a little bit because. Well, no, a lot of it. I mean, 2 years ago we would never have heard about Michael Rasmussen even having a chance to play, but he had a really good year, he had a great playoffs, and I've been hearing the whispers that he is going to get a really long look, going to go through camp, probably going to get his 9 games. And that's a change for them. But maybe they have looked at the NHL and said, you know what? A lot of teams are doing it now. And if we have some of these star players, we might have to do it too.
Invoicing and
I think so. I mean, I think you're right. And it is an interesting shift because that was the one place where you could always guarantee a prospect would bake for a long time, right? That was the place.
And one addition I put to the thing, if it is Helm, I've always been kind of fascinated and wondering if Helm's got another level to go to.
Yeah.
If he's put into a scoring line situation in Montreal, whether or not we'll see a little more of that offensive potential come out, depending on who his wingers are, of course.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think Helm. I don't think we've seen it all from Helm. I agree with you. When you watch him play, he's got way too much skill. And he really surprises you with little things he does. The kind of things that make you wonder, that if he's going to be one of those players that's better with skilled player type players, and that he could really is. And I agree completely, Anthony.
But he's never gotten higher than 33 points for them. He's never gotten 20 goals. He's never even gotten more than 15 goals.
But he's never been put in what you would call an optimal scoring line situation role. That's the part that I would want to, at least if I'm Montreal, I want to at least give that a possibility.
But he's 31. That's the other thing that's working against him.
It's true, but listen. At the same time, yeah, it's true. We can say that and say that that's what he is, and you very well may be right. But sometimes
I don't mean to say that's what he is. I mean to say that I don't know if teams are going to really take that leap of faith now with a 31-year-old in a fast league.
You got Nyquist again. If you're tagging other guys in the deal and you put them in, sometimes when you don't expect it.
Yeah. This is the problem with Montreal right now. If you subtract Pacioretty, Nyquist is, I would assume, probably would be in their top 6, but Helm is a bottom 6 guy, and you've got Shaw, Philip Deneau, Thomas McCannitz, Joel Armia, Matthew Pekka, Paul Byron, Delorier, Delarose, Lehkonen. All these guys are bottom 6 guys. How many can you have?
Helm's a bottom 6 guy in Montreal. I don't think he is.
I think he definitely is, Zach.
Who are the top 6?
Darren Helm is a top 6 in Montreal. Then Montreal sucks.
That's already gone. Who are the top 6 in Montreal? That's my
Drouin, Gallagher, Domi.
Yeah.
Probably Kotkaniemi is going to play if
he's going to play.
Andrew
top 6 immediately. They won't have him top 6 immediately, Mike. That'd be amazingly fast.
Well,
he might be there by the end of the year, Kotkaniemi, but I'm not about to go there just yet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go there either. But I think
you might have Helm at second line center, and then if Kotkaniemi plays well, then as the season goes on, it'll be almost like a Nolan Patrick situation.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with that.
But
Right.
let's just say if you got guys who are bottom six forwards playing in your top on your second line, that's not a good sign. So they may be second liners for Montreal, but they're not.
Well, no, this is. I mean, we're not talking about a team that's stacked with talent, but we are talking about a team that they are going to lose Pacioretty, and so they have to get something back. And if they can get two players that can fall into their top six, arguably at least, definitely top nine, that might be better than they're going to get from anywhere else for Pacioretty right now.
If I'm Mark Bergevin and I'm trading Pacioretty to the Red Wings, and say Nyquist is the top piece that I'm getting back. If there's a second piece, I'm not asking for Darren Helm. I'm asking for like Dennis Cholowski. I'm asking for a young player who could grow into being an NHLer, not a guy who's proved over 4 or 5 years that he's a certain level of NHLer and he's a decent player, but not somebody who can really grow into a bigger role. At least
they won't do Cholowski for a rental. They won't do that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Which is why.
And you also, if you're Montreal, you need to get yourself somebody who's going to absolutely play center for you. If you trade Pacioretty,
how are you going to do that?
Yeah,
you're renting the guy.
No, but. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. I mean, Helm is the kind of guy. It to me fits the description of the kind of player that you want to grab in this deal because he's got better, and he's got the potential. I mean, he might not be, but he's got the potential, and he's not going to kill you. He's not going to hurt you.
Or Evgeny Svechnikov. I mean, maybe Detroit's ready to walk away from him because he's been in this system for 3 years and he hasn't really done anything.
I get
the same thing.
Svechnikov's not really a fast skater, Mike. I would not be trading for him.
No, but I'm saying
it's not even close.
Yeah, okay.
All right. The other rumor I threw out earlier in the week was also controversial, and that was that I had heard. Carlson's going nowhere fast right now, right? And he's in this crazy limbo place. Tampa's out of it. Dallas
he's at his cottage, yeah.
Yeah, Dallas looks like they're out of it. As far
right, which is symptomatic of Dorian asking for a big, like if it's Dallas, they're asking for Heiskanen. If it's Tampa, they're asking for Sergachev, and Jim Nill and Steve Yzerman are basically going because that's not happening.
And because
he's a 1 year rental.
Right. That he appears to be a 1 year rental. However, the rumor I heard was involving the Penguins and Ottawa, right? So I've always been the one who never thought Kessel would get traded out of Pittsburgh. I've always been the one who says, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But in this deal that I heard, Kessel would end up in Vegas, which is interesting, I think. And that would be a good move for Vegas. He would be a great fit there for sure. And he would immediately push them, and he's got the speed and everything to play there, or at least the speed of his game. And then Carlson ends up in Pittsburgh, with the money there. And now, if you're Pittsburgh, I mean, the only chance you have if you're Ottawa, and a bunch of different pieces end up back in Ottawa. Those are just the two key pieces that I heard. But if you're Ottawa, your best shot might be something like this, and that's why I thought it was interesting when I heard it, because you're going to. Tampa made some sense because Tampa's that close to winning a Stanley Cup. Pittsburgh, add Carlson to Pittsburgh, well, this is the kind of thing that Rutherford would do. It felt interesting to me. It just felt like this is a Rutherford type move.
Well, we mentioned this on one of the earlier shows, and I want Russ to talk about the Kessel portion of it. But my again, if this was going to happen, this is definitely not a let's trade for Carlson and extend him. This is Carlson for 1 year as a 1 year rental. As let's bring him in as a mercenary, put him on the power play with Letang and Crosby and Malkin and whoever, and for 1 year, and then we say goodbye when he goes to market next summer, because that's the only with Pittsburgh's current structure, they can't really afford to extend him. Because nobody's gonna take Chris Letang with his history of injuries, and they're not gonna trade Crosby or Malkin. Even if they trade Kessel, they can't open up the cap space going forward to pay Carlson what he is likely to ask for. Now, Russ, you said the Kessel thing with Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Kessel to Vegas definitely makes more sense. But again, the problem is I don't think George McPhee wants to be on the hook that long for an aging player, even though right now he's fine. But in 3 years, where is he going to be? Because I think he's got 4 or 5 left on his deal.
Yeah.
Does he and Stastny have any history playing on a line together?
Yeah, they played in the Olympics. It was him, Van Riemsdyk, and Stastny in 20.
That might be the other angle that we're looking at here is the fact that with Stastny being there, that's a comfortable fit. But again, if you're looking at that, Russ, as a window here, for them to potentially.
I don't think Vegas looks at a window. They don't appear. I don't think McPhee is looking at this year even as a window to get back to the Cup. I think he's going to try and make the playoffs, do everything, but I think he knows his team's going to go through some sort of cycling here at some point. And when they do you really want Phil Kessel on like the 3rd year of trade that you got him on Pittsburgh? Because we don't know where his speed will be at then. Kessel might be winding down at that point.
I mean, I agree with that, but it also depends on, you have so much money still at this point. Now you've got other players who
he doesn't want to waste his money. He's got,
No, but it's not but you can gamble a certain amount of it. It is Vegas after all. But you can't gamble a little bit. No, you can, but you can gamble a certain amount of it. And if I'm gambling it, I don't think this is a terrible gamble. Like, I think this is a pretty half decent gamble to make because he brings, he's won it. I mean, they are now. This is a team who is also $3 million apart on their UFA or RFA that they're about to go into
with Carlson. Yeah.
Carlson, right? Well, so they're $3 million. They're $3 million with William Carlson. $3 million. I mean, that's going to be an issue too. And
again, I think we have to look deeper into if there is a motivation on the Penguins to trade Kessel. Is it simply, trader Jim Rutherford wanting to be inventive, or is it the fact that, we know that there was some discontent at the end of the playoffs between Kessel and Sullivan, but I also think that the concern is Kessel is turning 30, and the same concern that the Maple Leafs had a few years ago regarding him and what his game would be like if he loses a step. He's a player who is completely reliant on his speed for his shot and for his ability to get to the net. And if he slows down, and we know, he's not the greatest physical specimen in the world, then that is a legitimate concern. And I continue to think that the one place that he could go to that would be a perfect fit would not be Vegas. It would be Arizona, because Tocchet is there, and Tocchet was the Kessel whisperer when he was in Pittsburgh. And that team is in desperate need of an established scorer that can keep a little bit of the pressure off the Galchenyuks and the Kellers. That would make sense, but I don't know as much about Vegas.
It's $8 million a year for the next 4 years, and years 3 and 4 is what I would worry about. I think Arizona is a better idea because they need to sell tickets, and you might be able to sell some tickets with Kessel there because, again,
and some hot dogs.
Well, he's a previous Cup winner.
And secondary scoring in Vegas too. I mean, they do need secondary scoring in Vegas.
No, but they don't need to sell tickets. Arizona desperately needs to. They just upped their deal for the next 5 years for that arena. So I'm sure that the management group did that with the idea of players are getting better, the team's getting better. We got to start filling this place somehow.
Now, go ahead.
Let's play a little bit of devil's advocate on that. We all think, Vegas is an unbridled success. Obviously, the most incredible story ever in the NHL. This team, the city loves the team. Everything's there. I mean, there is a little bit of fear among people I talk to out there about the one-hit wonder going so fast, so quickly, and then if you drop off, what I mean? Because this is his fan base now that has known nothing but this crazy miracle season, right? And if you're gonna, this was the fear in Colorado when the Avalanche went there, because the Avalanche went, because the Colorado Rockies failed there, the Avalanche go out there and they succeed right away. They win the Stanley Cup. And then the whole fear was like, will we be able to sell? And they managed to stay competitive for a very long time, and until recently. So they managed to stave it off by just, I think, building a culture over years and years and years, where this team in Vegas has the potential to go either way. Like, they could become suddenly not competitive. No one would be it wouldn't be as shocking as what they just did last year if they were suddenly a middle of the pack or not a playoff team, right? So So is there anything? I know you say they don't have to sell tickets, but they do have to sell excitement.
I think they still have it. I mean, look, the Colorado thing, I think they looked at what happened with the Rockies, and that's what scared them, because the Rockies were the king of the mountain there. Yeah. And then when they started to not be great, attendance really dwindled there. So I think that's what scared them. Vegas, they still have the city to themselves for this year. And even when the Raiders move in there, they've got the Vegas born thing. Like I don't think people will drop off just because they may not make it to the Stanley Cup this year. They
also their own product. That's the thing. You're getting a transplanted football team with the Raiders, whereas this team has basically been literally born in Vegas.
They went with that. They did, and that was a smart move for them. I mean, agree.
It was, and I think based on that, fans are going to look at it and say, "Wow, this was like my first introduction to hockey. This was amazing," but this sold me on the sport, not necessarily on the team being a Stanley Cup contender every year. I think that's what it was.
Didn't replace James Neal. Like they really didn't. They really didn't replace James Neal. Like honestly,
we don't know that yet because we don't know if anybody from their draft class is going to make the jump and make the team.
In their mind, they replaced him with Paul Stastny.
Right, but that's not the same player, right? It's a totally different kind of player.
Right. Restructuring of their lineup. I think they looked at what happened against the Capitals in the final and realized that they were going to have. They needed to be able to have. They needed strength down the middle, and I think their center situation was exposed.
Yeah, and I also think that they see Thomas Tatar as a bit of a replacement.
You can find wingers, exactly. You've got Tatar already that you've traded for, that you substantially traded for in this case. So you expect Tatar will have that opportunity here. But I think it was smart enough for them to at least restructure things to make sure that they had a strong spine down the middle, which, again, I don't want to say they did it with smoke and mirrors. They didn't, but in some ways they did. If you look at their talent level at center going into each series in this case. I mean, I like Eric Holla and everything, but he started to show at certain points during the playoffs, I think, especially when we got to the final.
For sure.
He might have been miscast in that spot.
They did it with mirrors is what they did. I mean, their speed is everything to them. That's the way they play faster than anybody, and that's the.
So here's an example, okay? Let's say Nick Suzuki, they feel like he's close. They probably would put him on the wing. I mean, look at his last 2 years, 96 and 100 points. He is a guy that definitely will get a very long look in camp, and if he looks the part, he's a guy that could walk onto that team because he has a load of talent and a great shot.
That's true.
Do you think Cody Glass is going to make it?
I think he'll have a chance, but I think they want him to definitely be a center. And so I think that may take another year based on that. But you look at someone like Suzuki, who they may not even view as a center, and they might say, you know what, this guy's, other than the center part, he's ready.
Now there was a move that was just made about 15 minutes before we started the show. It was announced that Troy Brouwer is getting bought out. And now the thing is, this is the second buyout window created by a player going to arbitration. So it's an opportunity because I think it was Brett Kulik or somebody like that from Calgary that went to arbitration. And Brouwer was making $4.5 million for this year and next year. So the cap hit they save $3 million on the cap the next 2 years and defer $1.5 million for the 2 years after that. This is a move I think they made to get Noah Hannafin signed because they had to create some cap space. And I'm surprised that they haven't gotten him locked up on the long-term deal. I mean, we thought that Carolina was going to go bridge on him, and that's probably one of the factors that led to the trade. I mean, with Calgary, I mean, they made this deal because Bill Peters believed in Hannafin. So they, I think, have to get this guy locked up long-term.
They also made it though because that they thought Hannafin's contract negotiation was going to be a nightmare. I mean, then I think that they felt like that was coming, and we've already seen that the Dundon there and it doesn't go for nightmarish financial scenarios. Like I think that he just saw this as like, okay, we're not going to play this game.
Yeah, that's Chuck Caton.
Yeah, he's going out of it. Yeah, right. He's going out of his way to make a point on that. Like that he's going to not waste money like that, right? So that's kind of crazy.
Speaking of which, do we feel like Carolina's just done? Like the team that you see is the team they're starting the season with?
No, I think that they're still moving. I think that the Fox stuff has fallen off. I do, but I think that Justin Fox is going to start there. But I still don't think Skinner is. I think Skinner is. We still have to wait and see what happens with Carlson and Pacioretty and maybe even Panarin now. Like before we see what happens with Skinner. Like that's. But I think Skinner's not going to. I think they have burned bridges with Skinner that they can't get back on. I really feel like they have to move him.
Well,
they're playing a dangerous game right now.
It was very interesting that that one of the players who was not made available to the media yesterday at Smashfest was Skinner, because I have a feeling that questions about his situation in Carolina would have been asked, and he just didn't want to answer those questions. Understand?
I've talked to people around him. He's not happy at all about what's happening.
Dude, that's a bad sign. Like, that's actually a bad sign, because again, if you answer it, say, "Hey guys, look, right now I'm in Carolina. Let's talk about something else." That's all he had to do. But clearly, it's a bit of a sore spot, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, he doesn't. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people who Francis, had sort of, there was a Ron Francis camp in Carolina,
right?
And
I understand. I mean, he won a cup there. Fans love him. He's very successful. I think he was still a very good GM. I'm sorry. I know he was a little slow on the trade front, but I think otherwise he was good.
He was okay, but the players, they're very loyal to him, and Skinner is one of those guys. And he was really pissed off about the way it went down, how it went down, the whole 9 yards, and then to see his name suddenly all over the place. I don't see him playing for them.
Well, I'll just give you a little food for thought here, because Eddie Olczyk's brother Rick is an assistant in Toronto now, who he left Carolina for the Leafs. Ron Francis is reportedly close to Kyle Dubas in terms of being sort of a mentor. You can use that as fodder for, would the Leafs with $10 million in cap space be interested in Skinner? I think they would be more interested in adding somebody as a 1-year guy as a defenseman more than a forward. And Falk is 2 years instead of 1. But if they have the cap money to play around with, and you have a skilled guy like Skinner who could score 50 points or 60 points. That might be something they do to open.
Like for them. I mean, he can replace JVR for them in some ways if they could get him, and this is his last year of his deal, right? So this would
correct.
It would make there's logic there for sure, but I think that I know that there was the Olczyk that ended up in Toronto was very controversial in Carolina. I think that then that would be very tricky move for them to pull off, because. There was a lot of feeling that, I've talked about before, that Chicago with Eddie Olczyk made some bad deals and convinced Carolina of some things that they didn't like. And at least Dundon believes that. For what it's worth, he believes it, whether or not it's true or not. And I think that had something to do with Francis. And I think that has something to do with Olczyk, ending up in Toronto. And I think that, you're going to see, I think it would be really tough for it would take a lot to get Skinner out of there because of that, maybe, because I think that would be a situation where they would, because Carolina is doing things like that right now. It's hard to. I hate to even bring those kind of conspiracy theory things up, but they actually are doing that kind of stuff.
If they're operating like that, then he is a complete and utter amateur. And you don't run professional sports franchises like that. You don't take.
That's been shown. I think that's been shown at this point. And I hate to say, I tried my. You guys know I tried my longest to give him the benefit of the doubt on things.
Well, the most recent quote from Don Waddell, which seems to be only a few days ago, is that, look, they're still talking about moving Skinner, but they'd be happy to have him back. Trying to cover both ends here. And you can't do that anymore in this NHL. Like, players don't want to be in that spot.
Yeah, that's a terrible spot.
Clearly, Skinner does not want to be in that spot. You got a new coach coming in, so it's a new situation for him. And, again, he might get uprooted in February, regardless of how the team is doing. This is an uncertain start right now for the Hurricanes, because you've got a couple players, and I'm sure when the season starts, they'll exhale and they'll just focus on hockey. But then once, January comes around, they're going to start getting talked about again as far as deals. Yeah,
no, you're right. And it's good. I really think that that's a tough spot to put it. It's putting Brind'Amour into a weird spot too, for sure, because, Brind'Amour would like to have Skinner there for sure. He'd like to have some scoring. It is fascinating. Someone brought up to me the other day how fascinating it is that Brind'Amour and Tocchet are coaches in the NHL at the same time for ex-Flyers, for Flyers people. If you ever think about that, that they
when does Eric Lindros get a coaching job?
Yeah, they played on the line together. I'm trying to remember who else was on the line with them.
Derek Smith.
That's I'm thinking. Derek Smith. I think Ilka Sinisalo played with them a little bit too, if I remember right. I'm just trying to remember back to who was the other winger, who was the winger on the
It wasn't Dave Poulin,
right? Would it be the center?
It wasn't Dave Poulin.
Elliott can play between those two at some point. He may have
played between. Yeah, he was a center, Poulin, right?
Right.
Poulin, yeah, you get Poulin. Yeah, it's pretty funny. I'd talk to Bill Meltzer about that one. He would remember. But there's definitely some. It's interesting that you have these two guys. They're both in awkward, weird situations too. Like they're in in Carolina's and Phoenix or Arizona or whatever.
Yeah, but I think Tocchet earned himself a little bit of.
Very little.
Yeah, but I mean, they did play. If you look at the record, they played very well in the second half, and I know that sometimes doesn't mean anything. The first 20 games of this season will be a big key for him. If they go, 0 for October, then he's in deep trouble again. And if they play 500 hockey, or if they play better than that, then then maybe it's getting through to these young players what Tocchet is trying to do.
They definitely believe in him. Excuse me, got some comment there. They definitely believe in Tocchet there, which is good.
He finished strong, so that was good for him.
They finished strong and everything like that. Both have been, like I said before, both were assistant coaches, and that sometimes is tricky to make the jump to head coach in Brind'Amour and Tocchet, but we'll see.
I'm still worried about Jacob Chychrun, though, because, again, I know they say he's going to make the start of camp and everything else. He had a pretty bad injury. He's been rehabbing this whole time. I'm going to hold my breath until the season starts, and I know that he's fully recovered, because that could really put a wrench into their whole defensive system.
And I'm not big for workout videos or anything, but I did see some of the stuff that Chychrun's been doing, and he's he did this ridiculous box jump. A guy with his legs, that kind of an injury, if he's not close to recovered, that was pretty remarkable. It was a high jump.
No, that's good. I mean, but I guess I even though that looks good, put him on the ice for like a week, 2 straight, and then see what he looks.
I agree, but again, if you're looking for the ability to really push off the knee, that's something to be said for that. And he's if he's anything like his father, tough as his father's had the reputation of being tough as nails too. So Jacob, I have no doubt, is probably a chip off the old block in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's for sure.
I do like I will say that there's things about Arizona's the moves that they made this offseason that I do really like. I think there's a real good chance. I think that Galchenyuk has a chance to really kind of figure things out there. I do.
The only thing I'm concerned about with that, Anthony, is the fact that according to what they're saying right now, they're going to put him at center again. And
I'm not big on a center thing for him, but I'm willing there to give it a try, pending on the wingers that are going to be with him.
Right. Now,
depending upon that.
Yeah, if they use him as a number 2, take a little pressure off of him, get better matchups for him.
The difference in pressure alone that Galchenyuk is going to feel.
Exactly. That's
going from Montreal to Arizona is going to be so unbelievably relieving to him. Like he's going to feel so much better about going to the rink, about it's not even going to be close. So I think it's worth giving a shot at center and see what happens. It does, and it changes things. I mean, it definitely changes situations.
I mean, I think they, when you shuffle everybody on that team, you can make 3 really good lines. Their 4th is okay.
Yeah.
We got to get some players up from Tucson probably to see what they have in your system.
I wanted to ask you something, Anthony, before we got off too.
Here's the one thing. The one thing I just want to get to, though, you have Ekman Larson and Goligoski, which is not a problem, but then Yarmulson at his age and Chychrun coming back, that's the rest of your top 4. Connaughton and Luke Shen can't play top 4.
No. Not there anymore. Shen is in
Shen's in Anaheim.
So whoever they replace him with,
Well, yeah, but it's Jason Demers and Goligoski.
Right. Yeah.
So there's still some iffiness on that defense.
There's definitely iffiness. They have this great defensive prospect pool, that has to show up, right? I mean, that's really what has to happen. I mean, they're sort of at the point where Winnipeg was last year, to a degree. Like we've been waiting for a lot of these prospects to show up in Arizona, and I think that reminds you a little bit of Winnipeg, because for the longest time I've been hearing how great Arizona's prospects were.
Yeah,
this got to the time. My question is this: the little Flyers, because somebody brought me asked me a Flyers question the other day, and I honestly didn't know the real answer. And the concept that Hackstall has been throwing out there as of late of putting Giroux back at center, and taking him away from his 102-point season. It's hard to imagine to me. Like they would move. I mean, I know he might not want to be a center. You might want to be a center, not a winger. But when you score 102 points, you think you'd be okay playing wing.
I think he's perfectly fine playing wing. I think it's the concept of the Flyers trying to figure out their third line center situation.
Right.
Beyond that, if you're counting on the fact that Nolan Patrick is ready to fully take on the number 2 job in this circumstance, and the possibility, Ron Hextall's mentioned playing Jordan Wheel at third line center certainly gives you an offensive look, but overall, in terms of the other responsibilities, I'm just not sure at this level for him. I personally think Giroux's going to remain at left wing. I think they don't want to, based on what Hextall said to us after the JVR press conference, they are counting on having the 2 of those guys, having Couturier and Giroux together. They like them together. They think they feed off each other extremely well. G does take offensive zone draws at times. Yeah. They sometimes switch up the look in that circumstance. So I know John Bork from NBC Sports had mentioned, having Giroux back at center, maybe it's a better lineup configuration and you cover your third line center situation. But I think that's what it's born of more than anything.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Because I really it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I hate when teams, ruin a good thing for their third line. Like to me, that's something that you can't possibly. You shouldn't be doing. Like if you've got a first line that's working, first 2 lines that are working like that. Because potentially here, the first 2 lines, as I see them, and as I was trying to tell this person who was asking me questions, I see them as starting off with Konechny, Giroux, and Couturier again, and then having Patrick, Voracek, and Van Riemsdyk, as your second line. That does put Wayne Simmons on the third line, right? Which is.
I think that's where he's ended up anyhow, because based off of last year, he's going to have to work his way back into something higher.
Yeah, physically, he's recovering from surgery too. I think you're not going to throw him immediately into a top 6 role right out of the gate. I think they want to put him in that. They would probably put him on third line right wing.
Yep.
Potentially play Oscar Lindblom on the other side, or the third or fourth line, or him or Raffle, whoever's playing better in that circumstance. Right. And then they figure things out, and then they'll figure things out from there. And again, the other thing I could just
you don't want to say Jordan Wheel yet? The GM.
No, I'm going to say Jordan Wheel for now. But we still got a whole month yet. Could they make a deal for a third line center? There's always the possibility of that. They could be leaving the door open for one of the young players, maybe a Misha Vorobiev, maybe Morgan Frost, but I'm going to put that weight up much further down the list there in that circumstance. And the other thing about just getting back to Giroux again. My biggest concern is the wear and tear that he's put on playing center regularly, going up against big, strong, physical centers, and the amount of ice time that he's had over that amount of time. I think him moving to the left wing is going to prolong his overall offensive effectiveness for at least the next 3 to 5 years, barring injury at minimum.
Yeah. One of the big reasons that he got 102 points was he wasn't hurt. And that's the
right.
And that is
wear and tear, playing the pivot, just playing the center position. It's a lot that's involved. Doesn't mean he can't handle it. And again, if they've got a rash of injuries and have to put him back at center, he'll do it. But I think the most effective deployment that they're going to have for the moment, for right now, I think remains having Giroux on the left side.
Yeah, I don't expect to see him at center either.
It makes sense to me. I mean, I don't think unless you watch Giroux play live a lot, you don't realize the kind of game he plays, which is he plays a really different kind of game, and he does play a very physical game, and he's not big. When you watch Giroux out there, he doesn't play big. He doesn't even play. He doesn't play he doesn't look like a big player. You really notice it sometimes in the All-Star games with Giroux, like how his size is compared to other players who are equally. He's just not a big player, and he his skill is obviously. I mean, he's one of the better passers in the league, and that's always been his thing. In fact, he scored as much as he did off the wing was impressive. But the only thing I question is I think that Simmons, a healthy Simmons, and I love Konechny, but I think that Konechny feels more like a third line winger to me than Simmons does.
Watch Konechny's second half of the year. Konechny was like grease lightning on that.
Oh yeah, no, he's amazing, and he's
there. And I think over the long haul, I'm telling you, I mean, depending on what happens with Simmons and the contract and whatever occurs, but certainly if he's healthy and Konechny is not doing what he needs to be doing in his own end of the ice, you could see him back on third line. But I think the transition is, or we already started to see the transition towards the end of last year with Travis. It's just a matter of him trying to keep his head on straight and not, and butting back on plays defensively better than at certain times.
Yeah, he's got to just know, like, look, you don't want to take out the extra feistiness that he does have, but you do want to sort of slow it down early in games at times when there's points where you're like, you don't need to do this right now. Just
right.
Yeah,
There's a time and experience too, I think, for him.
And once Simmons gets traded before the deadline, then the second line.
You never know. Again, there's.
I think it's going to happen. It's hard to see otherwise.
Yeah, unless they can figure things out, I think there's a substantive. I don't think it's, as I said before on the show. Yeah. I don't think it's the money. I don't think it's the dollar figure here. I think it's the term, and I don't. I'm not 100%. I'm not sure it's going to be bridgeable.
Yeah, it might not be. It might not be, but I still don't think if they're in it, they trade him in the middle of the year. I don't think they will do it. I think that they've got too much. It depends on I guess the kind of season he's having, but I still think he's going to be a power play force for them. Even if he's on the third line, he's going to be part of their power play. He'll find his way through the power play. Yeah. I mean, this is the guy who was their only All-Star member 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And was the MVP of the All-Star game 2 years. I mean, he was hurt last year, so it's hard to think that how far he's fallen so quickly in some people's eyes.
And he played that's the thing. He played 75 games last year with a litany of injuries. So, and I know if they traded him, it wouldn't play well in that room at all. He is, he's.
People know he's a warrior, and him showing up for a lot of games when he was hurt meant a lot to a lot of players, and meant a lot for effort. All right, good stuff, guys. That's all the time we have for today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and. Thanks so much. Remember, you can check out Anthony. Where are you on Twitter? So people can follow you on Twitter.
I'm at my name at Anthony Mingioni. Is that no? My first name and last name straight across.
That's always better than things like Mike and Buffalo. But yeah, I agree with that. It's good that you have that name. But Mike, where are you on Twitter?
At Mike and Buffalo.
All right. And Russ is at Sportsology, which you really have to.
Yeah, that really sucks.
It's because Russ has this awesome website called Sportsology.
Oh, thanks.
So remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.